Welcome to Podcast Movement 2023.
The doctors are in the house officially. Thank you. Thank you. So excited to be here. My name's Arielle Nissenblatt, and this is Lauren Passell. Hi. And we are not trained medical professionals. I do feel like we have to say that out loud. But we are very trained in the ways of podcast marketing. And what we are here to do today is to listen to your problems and to diagnose you. So, for the next few minutes, we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit, talk about our podcast marketing philosophy, and while that's happening, we would love it if you think of your podcast problems. They have to be specific, because we will listen to them and we will diagnose you. This is who we are. Lauren, would you like to introduce yourself a little?
Yeah, sure. I'm Lauren Passell. I'm the founder of Tink Media. It's a podcast growth company. If you forget it, I named it after Tinkerbell. And I have two podcast newsletters. Podcast Newsletter, which is a love letter to podcasts. You should pitch me so I can write about your podcasts, and you should subscribe so you can read about them. And then I also have a podcast newsletter called Podcast Marketing Magic, which gives all the helpful podcast marketing tips that my company uses to help shows grow. I do other stuff too, but your turn. I'm not a doctor also.
My name's Arielle Nissenblatt. I am newly the community marketing manager at Descript, which is why it's overlapping with the logo, because it's a new title and a new company. I used to be at Squadcast, but just last week, Squadcast was acquired by Descript. Talk to me later about what that means for you and also how to switch over your accounts. I'm also an ambassador for Ausha. I host a podcast called Trailer Park, the podcast Trailer Podcast, and I host on Ausha. Big fan. Ask me about that too.
Wait, now might be the time to mention also, we have a Tink podcast on Ausha, and it just launched a new, fresh revamp today. So go subscribe to Feed the Queue. It's our Tink podcast.
Feed the Queue.
Feed the Queue.
So I hope you had a moment to think about your podcast problems. What we are going to ask you to do shortly is to line up on this wall. And we really hope that there are podcast problems in the audience, because what we're going to ask you to do is tell us a little bit about your podcast. Give us the name of the show, give us how long you've been doing it. Tell us your main problem that you are facing. It could be that you really think you should change the cover art, but you don't know how. It could be that there's like 2 of your podcasts popping up on Apple Podcasts. What do you do? It could be, how do I market my show using social media? It could be anything, and tons of other things that you might be having problems with. It cannot be, how do I grow my show? A little bit more specific than that, that's what we're looking for. But while you're thinking of your question, while you're lining up, we're just going to talk to you a little bit about podcast therapy, podcast marketing tactics, and partner-focused strategies. Those are our philosophies. Podcast therapy.
Yeah, podcast therapy it's consulting, but it's really fun. Sometimes there are tiers, but we bring in podcasters. It's me and Arielle, and then we have another person from Tink to take notes, so you come back with a document. But we like to answer all sorts of things. We really like to find out what people are doing already when they're marketing. So I feel like that is something, if you wanted to come up and talk about maybe what you're doing already to market your show that you don't think is working, and maybe we can find a problem or a tweak that you could make. What else do people ask us about? People ask us about, who they should be working with or where they should be pitching themselves. Those are the kind of things that we help answer.
Hell yeah, this is so great.
Yeah.
Marketing tactics, I'm sure we'll get to a bunch of them as we start addressing your issues. In a moment, we're going to open up the doctor's office, and we're going to get our scalpels out, and we're going to answer your questions, and it's going to be great. So why don't we just start doing that, because we've got 26 minutes for open office hours.
Yes.
Come on up. So we're going to have you sit in this chair. Again, tell us the name of your podcast. Give us a little bit of a description of it. Tell us how long you've been doing it, and then what is your podcast problem? Welcome to the doctor's office.
Welcome. Uh-oh.
Is it? Should be on.
Testing.
Yep. Oh.
Hello, my name is Marshawn Hargrave. I am the host of High Vibe Table Talks, which is a podcast for women entrepreneurs to overcome the mindset obstacles that is growing your own business and finding community in being a solopreneur, because it can be a lonely journey. My question or problem is that one niche that I really want to help is people who are thinking about starting a side hustle, but no one puts that in their LinkedIn bio or their Instagram, I'm thinking about starting a side hustle. So how do I find those people?
I would target business podcasts. I feel like people that listen to business podcasts are often thinking of a side hustle, but they probably don't know how to get that specific. I don't know. What would you say?
Yeah, I think Lauren's right on the money. I think what I would do in that situation is reach out to other podcasts that have solopreneurs or people who potentially would have side hustles and run an ad on those shows. Or potentially ask if you can do a promo swap of some sort. So you would reach out to these shows, and maybe it's like women in business, like shows that are your target audience. And you would say, you know, I'm Marshawn and I have this podcast, and here's why I want to reach out to you. Come listen to my show and let's talk.
Or pitch yourself as someone to be a guest on those shows and say, here are the 5 points and be really specific. Here's how I can help your listeners start or help their side hustle thrive, and pitch yourself as like the side hustle expert. That's what I would do.
How do you currently look for your, who are you currently looking for, and how have you found the perfect candidate in the past?
For guests?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, no, for this process that you're doing.
Oh, so I mostly look on Instagram, and I find like people who go to like pop-up shows or like are selling their coaching or things on Instagram, LinkedIn, Etsy, things like that, and I kind of just reach out to them, let them know what I do, to try to bring them into my universe.
I would also, Podchaser is a really powerful tool. They have a free tool within Podchaser called Alerts. So if you go to podchaser.com/alerts, you can write in any word it's basically like a Google alert, but in audio. And you can type in the word side hustle. And so anytime anybody talks about a side hustle, you'll see which podcast was mentioning it. And then you can check out the shows that you could potentially want to be advertising in or being a guest on.
Also, are you trying to get these people on your show as guests?
I'm trying to grow my audience, and I also have like a virtual community for my audience too, like a paid platform.
Right.
So both of those.
Okay, because I would target getting people as guests, as people with podcasts with large audiences, and then after the podcast episode runs, later ask them if they'll put it in their feed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you feel healed?
Very much.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Come back if
Yay!
that doesn't work. Thank you so much for being the first person.
Come on up.
Next. Oh.
Sorry. No, you're good.
It's okay, it's just the scalpel. Welcome to the doctor's office
Thanks, doctor. That was the shortest time in a doctor's waiting room I've ever had.
Oh, good.
in America.
Plus.
In America.
Yeah.
Yes. So
is
happy.
great.
I can't believe my predecessor dropped the mic. I thought that meant I wouldn't be able to go.
Oh, no, you're good.
My name is Fiona, and I co-host a podcast called We Can't Print This. And we talk to writers of all kinds, journalists, novelists, screenwriters, everybody, podcast writers, about the stories behind their stories. That's
I love
the
that.
tagline.
Love.
What is
your problem?
I have so many problems. I feel like the person who's gone in to see the doctor with a broken leg whose eyes are also bleeding.
Oh.
But but I think the one that I want to ask you about today is a little bit about social media. So, you know, I've absorbed that we need to have a newsletter, tick. We need to have a website, tick. We need to be on all the socials all the time. But I do feel there must be some that are of greater priority than others. And I'd love to know what are the best platforms for growth, if we can say
Oh,
that.
such a good question. Lauren and I love this question,
Thanks.
but you won't love this answer.
No, I think she's going to love the answer.
Well, the answer, right off the top of my head, and then we will explain, is there's no one answer for this. God damn it. Lauren, go ahead.
You're going to like the answer because you shouldn't be everywhere all at once. You
Thank
should
you.
think of
For
I
social.
like that answer.
You know, yeah. And generally, not always, social media isn't the best way to grow a podcast. So it's good for the audience you have. It's really, really important for the audience you already have to be there for them and everything. But you mentioned newsletters, and that is another form of social media. That is like really powerful. So having a newsletter, using it so that could stand on its own, so that people could subscribe to your newsletter and not even listen to your podcast. That's what I would focus on. Social media, it's good to be there. Pick a few channels that don't make you hate your life when you're posting on them, and stick to those. Don't live in your social media channels for a lot of reasons. A lot of people on social media don't listen to podcasts. So you're targeting a huge number of people who will never listen just because they do not listen to podcasts, and they won't. It's very hard to convert a non-listener to a listener. So that's why I would focus on newsletters. I bet of everything you just said.
I think I agree. And we forgot to say this, but Lauren and I, we sometimes interrupt each other because we get very excited, and we sometimes disagree. But I think that's a good thing. What I'll say in this situation is that I think I would, first of all, think about where you like to spend your time on social media. Then think about where your existing audience is already. Think about where the audience that you want is. And then think about where you actually enjoy making content. And then run 3-month experiments. So if you feel like you need to be on TikTok, go on TikTok for 3 months. See if something converts. If it converts, great, continue. If it doesn't, move on to something else. And then go back to your 4 questions that I said. Do you like spending time here? Does it make you hate yourself? Is this where your audience is? Is this where your potential audience is? And then take that all into account as you continue to do experiments.
And also remember, figure out what your goals are, because if your goals are to have a lot of social media followers, that's great. That is a goal. But they might not be driving downloads, and that's sometimes okay. So make sure. A lot of times we ask people, "What is your goal with your podcast?" And people are like, "I don't know. No one's ever asked me that before." So it seems obvious, but make sure you know what your goals are. If it is to get a lot of social media followers, or if it is to focus on downloads, because those aren't not always the same.
I feel healed.
Okay.
She feels healed.
I feel healed.
Thank you.
So much, Dr.
Okay, for those who are just joining us, welcome to the Podcast Clinic. My name's Arielle Nissenblatt. This is Lauren Passell. We are answering your podcast problems. We are diagnosing you and offering you solutions, prescriptions, RX, whatever the situation may be. We must reiterate, we are not real medical doctors, just podcast people. Joanne, welcome.
Hi, thank you. And I love the medical doctor coats. I love the commitment to a theme.
Thank you, OSHA.
Our names are on them.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So I am Joanne. I host the No Guilt Mom podcast with the lovely Bree Tucker right over there. Woo. And we help moms go from the family martyr in their house to the role model. So they're really exhibiting the behavior they want to see in their kids instead of controlling everything and doing everything themselves. So our problem is getting new people to the podcast. Our podcast goal is an attraction magnet. We have a really great newsletter that we send out a lot, and we sell through that. I do Instagram, I'm on social media and putting together the Instagram reels of the podcast, which honestly fall flat. And
I have ideas.
There's no engagement with those. I'm guest host, I guest on other podcasts to bring that in. But I'm just looking for where we could find those people to attract them to us.
Go ahead.
No, what do you have?
I was gonna say I would think of a tagline, or what is your mom martyrdom give up, or I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Think of some sort of thing that a mom can say. This is my mom moment when I don't know, fill in the blank. Took a moment for myself, or whatever. This is your genre, so and then have people call in, and then use those voice memos. And I would do voice memos, not a voice line. Have them send voice memos, and either use those as separate episodes or tack them onto the end of old episodes. But also, I would use them to target people that, if you want someone's attention in the podcast space, you could ask someone, if there's someone that you want to be on their show, you could ask them to send a 5-minute voice memo answering this one question. Think of what one question or one fill in the blank thing for these people to answer is. Do you know what I'm saying? Something that would make people hold up their hands and answer the question to this prompt that you're going to make up.
Asking on social media for that?
So I would put it on social media. I would make nice graphics that ask the question. And I think when you're formulating what the question is, it's what is the defining question of your podcast? Is it, tell me a story of when you went from martyr to, what was it?
Model.
To model. Mm-hmm. Is it, tell me that story? Tell me that story in 30 seconds. Tell me that story in 2 minutes. And then what you can do with that is you can cut them for social clips, but you can also, like Lauren said, it could be its own series. It could be the cold open to every episode. But what you're doing there is you're allowing people to call in, which gives you a viral moment. It allows you to create social assets for these people. They might share it. People are going to listen to the show.
Maybe I have something like that called No Guilt Mom Wins, which I do every Thursday, which is an interview, though, with somebody who has.
I would go shorter.
Go
shorter.
7 minutes. is the interview. So shorter, like 30 seconds.
And let people call in. And then you probably get a lot of bad pitches, I'm assuming, to be on your show. But you might get some pitches where you're like, I can't have you on the show, but I still want to work with you. Have them send in a voice memo. It's a low ask, so you could even ask like big people, big names to do this like low ask and use that content. Either you could, if you're trying to get more downloads, you could probably do it as a separate like 5-minute episode that's separate and get almost as many downloads as the rest of your episodes, and then also take time off, give yourself a break. I don't know, but I would play around with that format and think of that question to use it as content.
I have one more, which is that I think you should reach out to, I imagine you are aware of a bunch of different podcasts in your general topic area, some that are smaller, some that are just around your size, some that are much bigger. Yeah. I would reach out to the ones that are much bigger and ask if they are interested in you dropping an episode on your feed and you not necessarily doing anything, and them not doing anything in exchange for you. Just great audio that you love, that you endorse, that you and your co-host could record an intro for, so that you could say, check this out, this is something that we really recommend, we really love this. You're building goodwill with these people, and over time it could come back to you. And at that moment, you're giving your audience a quality piece of content. And it can give you a week off if you want.
Okay. Those are some great ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you healed?
Healed.
She's healed.
Sweet.
Healed. I'm healed.
Yay, wow, this is magical. It's so magical.
Welcome to the doctor's office. Oh, no. Good catch. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you guys?
Good.
My name is Nicole, obviously. I host a show called Imperfect Success, which is for burnt out perfectionists and high achievers to learn how to achieve their goals imperfectly. And my problem is right now we've been stalled for about 6+ months at 100 to 200 downloads per episode. And while I'm going on other shows and talking with other podcasters and we're seeing a little bit of an uptick, I'm wondering if you guys recommend doing anything else in tandem to expedite that growth. Expedite. Thank you.
Cool. Well, here's one thing that I will say, and everybody should just be aware of this. I should have said this at the beginning. We have not listened to your shows, right? So there could be, I always say this, and I think that this is applicable for absolutely everyone. Have somebody listen to your show who does not love you, who might be mean to you. And this is obviously, I've never listened to your show, so I don't know, but you should do it too. Everybody should do it. Everybody should be aware that your show might suck. Okay, continue.
Do you have any ad money to spend?
A little bit,
It sounds like maybe that could use a little jolt with some advertising money. Do you think?
Yeah, newsletters?
I was going to say newsletters, advertising in newsletters is not super expensive, but if you did have like a couple $1,000s, that might be like a boost that makes a big difference. But if you want like a slow, constant growth, I would just say promo swap every single episode. Even if you don't have the partnership like arranged, I would give a recommendation on every single episode, whether it was a partnership where the other person was doing it for you, or it was just giving a good recommendation to your listeners. And then later on, you could go to that podcast and say, by the way, I recommended you on my podcast. I think these promo swaps would help. One more idea, and then I'm sure you have more, but have you ever done a feed swap where you put an entire episode of your show onto the feed of another show?
I haven't, no.
Okay. I would get some shows that are a lot bigger than yours and find one episode of your show that is perfect on their episodes. Perfect. Like their audience is going to love it. And email that person in December or right now before in the holidays and say, are you taking a week off for Christmas or whatever? Do you need something in your feed? Because this episode, I know your listeners are going to like it. Will you put it in your feed? And then you could even say, in return, I will put an episode of your show into my feed. I've chosen this episode in particular. My listeners would love it, and it'll drive them to you. And then you can even say, you can take yours down in 30 days, and I'll leave mine up forever. So negotiate that way. I think that would.
Brilliant.
If you want more information on that, Lauren has a newsletter called Podcast Marketing Magic. It's podcastmarketingmagic.substack.com. And I wrote a guest post for it called Feed Warmers, and that's what she's describing, is the process of warming your feed with somebody else's content while you take a break and vice versa.
And you get marketing in the back.
And I was just going to say one more thing, which is that there are a ton of newsletters, right, focused on entrepreneurship, on success, things like that, I would go to reletter.com, RELETTER.com. It's the newsletter equivalent of Lauren and I, one of our favorite websites called Rephonic. It's Reletter. Basically, you can search for anything using a keyword, and you'll find a bunch of newsletters on that topic, and it gives you information on how many subscribers they have, how to contact them. It is a paid service, but I believe they have a free trial, so definitely check that out.
Who do you interview right now? How do you find interviews to people to interview?
Typically through either Instagram or we're doing like a pod swap of some sort, or excuse me, whatever it is, where I'm on their show, they're on my show.
Okay, I would interview as many podcasters as you can, and any podcaster, go through your archive. Anyone you've already interviewed that has a podcast, go back to them and say, "This was a listener favorite. Can you put it on your feed?" And you say to them, by the way, your listeners, if they have a podcast, say your listeners are used to hearing you interview people. They're not used to hearing you being interviewed, but you were interviewed on my show. It was a hit. Please put it on your feed. And then keep that in mind when you're finding guests in the future. If those people have a podcast audience, we keep on saying this, it's hard to convert someone that's not a podcast listener. Those people have podcast listener audiences already, so use that and think about working with podcasters as much as you can.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Healed.
Great. Healed.
Thank you. Woo! I know, me too.
Which one? RELETTER, Reletter. Oh, podcastmarketingmagic.substack.com. Welcome to the stage. Welcome to the doctor's office. We are going to try to get through everybody. I don't know, so we might move a little bit faster, but we promise we'll do everything we can.
Yeah.
I'm Janice Formicella, and my podcast is called Breakups, Broken Hearts, and Moving On. I've been around for about 2 years, and one wall that I'm hitting is I still get listeners reaching out to me quite a bit, which is very flattering. Part of the point of the podcast, though, is to sell my coaching services. A lot of people have started to tell me, especially in the last 6 months, that the podcast itself is so helpful that they feel that that's all that they need, which is wonderful, but kind of, it's very discouraging as well. I believe that other breakup coaches who are also podcasting, who are doing better, are getting a lot of their listenership from Instagram. I did really well there for a while, and then as soon as I hit about 4,200 followers, it just completely stopped. And so yeah, it's multiple walls.
I think we're going to try to give one piece of advice for the rest. There is a dating coach named Sabrina Zohar. Are you familiar with her?
I don't think so, actually.
She's huge on TikTok. I would reach out to her for a collaboration.
Okay.
And then we can talk offline about more potential ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's useful.
Okay. Lauren, quickly, go.
Yeah, I also think you could not do the full counsel, or maybe use Patreon or something, put things behind a wall of some kind, and get people into a community. Or
essentially separate your audience into the people that need the advice and the people who need the advice and are never going to buy your services, and then the people who are more likely to buy, right? So those people might be willing to pay.
I know we only have 1 second, but you could also, with people's permission, maybe play audio of some of the counseling services, and you would give those people maybe a discount, and so we could be like a fly in the wall on some of these things. People might really enjoy that and put themselves in the shoes of the people in the course instead of just hearing your advice. Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Reach out to us again, sorry.
I'm starting to heal.
We're talking so fast. We have to.
Welcome to the doctor's office, Michael.
Hello.
I'm the kind of doctor who knows everybody's names.
Your bedside manner is
Yeah.
amazing.
My hands are really warm. Continue.
I'll take your word for it. My podcast is called Where We Go Next. I do deep dive conversations with accomplished people about fascinating topics. So here's my problem. One episode, I might speak with the founder of a company that's looking to bring back the woolly mammoth. The next time I speak with a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. Then I'll speak with the person with the most TED Talk views of any speaker, right? Really accomplished people. I've been able to have fantastic guests on the show. But because it changes episode to episode,
I know what you need
and
to
it's
do.
not just true crime every time, I find that finding my audience and converting them is really difficult. And I think probably a lot of general interest podcasters suffer from this. So doctors, what do you advise?
That's a good question.
I know exactly what you need to do. Do you give any, at the top of the show, at the bottom of the show, do you talk about yourself?
At the top of the show or bottom, not so much, but the episodes are less just interview and more conversation. So the guest might speak 60% of the time, I'm 40, and I do interweave a lot of my own personal story into it.
Because what I've found is the issue with these types of shows is that people need to be there for you.
Right.
Because right now they're searching a random topic and they're finding that you have, like, I talked to the person with the most TED Talk views ever, and that's awesome, but they're not necessarily there for you.
Are
So
your
I would
analytics
have
like
somebody
this a little bit, or are they completely the same?
My consistent audience is about the same, but it will spike when
When
you
you have a
know
great guest.
when those guests' fans come on.
I would have somebody interview you, and I would put that on your feed. We call it a reverse interview, sort of in the style of the way that you do your interviews now. Maybe you have one of your favorite guests or one of the most popular episodes. Maybe you have that person interview you, you put it on your feed, and maybe you also can pitch yourself around. But I think what's really important here is that we need to know who you are and why it's you telling this story.
I would maybe do solo episodes every once in a while, like shorter solo episodes.
Something that has like a specific reason that is a little bit different. Maybe we can talk offline, but I think like something that gets people to your feed that is separate from the other episodes. Like, what can you offer that's separate? You can think about that. That's your homework.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the prescription, and I'll start taking the pills.
Cheers.
Thank you. We should have had prescription forms.
Welcome to the doctor's office,
Hi,
Brandon.
come in.
Thank you. How y'all doing?
Swell, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. My name is Brandon. I'm from Minnesota, and I host the podcast, or co-host the podcast, The Wandering Naturalist. We're a government agency. We run a park district, and we try to promote environmental stewardship through the cultural and natural histories of our area, and especially provide a platform for underrepresented stories in that, and stories that have been purposefully erased through history. We've been going we're getting ready to record our 6th season. We've got a lot of really great listeners. They're very loyal, but they're very silent. And, on social media or in emails, they'll like things and whatnot. But when we ask for criticisms or feedback or what they want us to do, they don't say anything. They'll definitely come to programs that we offer and whatnot. But I guess I just want to be criticized by them or get ideas from them.
I understand. Go to soundsprofitable.com.
Okay.
And look up, this is your prescription, and look up an article called What We Talk About When We Talk About Podcasting. It's written by Tom Webster.
Okay.
It will outline for you 5 questions that you must ask your audience. And it must ask your audience. Elon Musk, I just said. But I know it's very difficult to find those people. So what you're going to do is you're going to reach out individually to the people that have self-identified as people who respond to you. And you're going to say, hi, can I have 5 minutes of your time? Can we jump on the phone for 5 minutes? Mm-hmm. And you're going to treat the people that actually jump on the phone with you as, stand-ins for the entire audience, even though there's no way statistically that they can be, because they've self-selected. But until other people reach out, that's what you know. So you're going to treat that. It doesn't have to be a scientific study, but you're going to treat their qualitative data as gospel. And then you can talk about that on the show. You can say, we heard from some of our listeners that this is what you like, this is what you don't like. And then people might feel compelled to reach out because they disagree. So go to soundsprofitable.com. Look for What We Talk About When We Talk About Podcasting.
Are you trying to get feedback from them or content from them?
We want feedback from them about what they like and don't like and what content they want.
Okay, good. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she agrees with me.
Perfect.
I do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, soundsprofitable.com.
Yes.
All right.
I'll
thank you.
share with you
Ask
after.
us if you can't find it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Healed. It's soundsprofitable.com is the website.
Tom Webster.
Tom
wrote
Webster.
it.
But the article is on soundsprofitable.com. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Well, how are you?
Good. So my name is Kari Campano, and I produce a podcast it's for my boss, actually. And it is a filmmaking podcast that pulls back the curtain on how movies are changed. The final cuts of movies are changed based on audience feedback. And this is done through interviews with some of the biggest names in Hollywood, producers, directors, and they discuss their projects, which are Barbie and Titanic and Bohemian Rhapsody. So it's very prominent films. My question is, aside from just wanting to kind of go to the next step and the next level of growth, there's kind of 2 markets for our podcast. One is industry, filmmakers, studio executives, and the other is moviegoers and movie fans, but it's a little bit hard to kind of market to both. So what's your prescription?
Who's it resonating with? I haven't heard the show, so I would pick who it's resonating with, like one of those two audiences, and really, really lean into it. I think there's probably more potential in the people that enjoy watching movies if you're really focused on growth. But if you're really focused on speaking to people in the industry, that might be nice to carve out that niche. But I haven't listened to the show. Do you happen to know who listens more at this point?
No, and I don't know how to find out who listens.
Survey
You would have
them.
to ask.
And what I'd like to do is to develop a community, and I'm a little bit unsure
Go to that
about how
article
to
we
do
just
that.
said.
I think what I would do in this situation is speak directly to both of them when you want to address the two sides. So I would say, so I have a podcast about podcast trailers, and it appeals to podcast listeners and podcast creators, so I know where you're coming from. So what I usually say at the intro is, this show is here to help you find your next favorite listen, if you're a listener, and to help creators make their next best trailer. So I just outlined that the show is for both people, so that they at least both feel heard. And I think that putting that out there transparently is a really smart way to go about it. Your marketing, it depends how big the show is for a number of the prescriptions that we could possibly give, like how many people you're hearing from week to week. We can talk more offline.
I think you have to ask them and go with the flow of who it's resonating with the most. I think that's the
And also, in theory, the people who make movies also watch movies. So, yeah, I think it definitely appeals more in that direction. But I think if I had to boil it down to one thing, I would say speak to both people, but really explicitly speak to both people.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation for developing a community?
Much longer conversation.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Almost healed.
Almost on the path to recovery.
We are definitely over time, but is this the last session of the day? No? Okay, so we should go.
One more.
One more. Okay.
One more.
Hello,
We'll
Lisa
talk
Marie.
to you afterwards. Hi.
Welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. I'm the
Doctor,
host of
shit.
the Love, Happiness,
Oh my gosh, I've emailed you before.
I'm not a real doctor either, though. I'm a psychologist. It's a totally different thing.
No, but you went to school.
Right.
And the podcast is about healthy relationships and personal happiness and career satisfaction, all good things. And we have a problem that I would love your help with. So the podcast has done very well. We've been working at it for a long time and hit a high water mark this past winter of 270,000 monthly listeners, which we were so excited about.
That's great.
And then saw listenership dwindle by 50,000 listeners a month. And I don't know why.
Did you get featured somewhere?
I don't think so. I'm not sure what happened. So
I would look in your analytics and see where that traffic came from. Could be a specific podcast app. Could be, where do you host your site? Where do you host
No,
your
but it
podcast?
sounds
just
like it went
Libsyn.
down. Did you say it went down? Down.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And
because
so-
maybe they got featured and then it went down. Right? You hit a high
But
mark
it sounds
and then
like you
went
were.
down.
Are we over
Yeah.
3 minutes? Okay, we should go.
Oh.
I feel like we should.
Just in your experience, what kinds of things will contribute to that? Because it's been such a mystery. I honestly haven't known what to make of it. But you're saying that maybe there was a feature,
How
something that
long
was
were you doing well?
months.
Okay.
I mean,
It was
yeah.
always at 270,000 per month.
No, I mean it. It grew up
It reached
to that
a
point.
peak and then went down.
Yeah.
I think this might just be maybe fatigue. People, maybe I would say shake it up.
Are you
drop.
saying that they got bored of me? Is not.
No,
I'm just kidding.
that's a big drop, though. I would talk to Libsyn. Have you spoken to them about
That was
it?
my first
No,
thought. That it was
I
a
would,
lot of
I would
thing.
speak to Libsyn. It could be that there was a server error, or that there is a server error, or that somebody that was playing your podcast on, I don't know, a website, the website's not working. There's a number of things that could happen, because that's a pretty big decline.
I would do that first. That was my first thought. But then I would survey them, and that survey.
You,
would keep
you
on
have
bringing.
enough listeners that you should be able to get a pretty good survey response.
Make sure the numbers are right. 'Cause- oh, gosh. Okay. And then number 2, survey them and really try to figure out who they are, what's going on. Ask them, should this show be longer or shorter? There's really good questions in this thing we keep on mentioning that will get you good data. I think you
Okay.
need data from them, the
So-
people that have stuck around.
Go to Libsyn. Go to the booth right
Yeah.
now.
Go Libsyn. All right.
Booth right
I
now.
will do that.
That's your prescription. Go
Thank
to the
you
booth
so
right
much.
now.
This was really helpful.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for
you.
letting us be doctors.
Thank you.